What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about another Detroit Lions off-season edition. But today, we're not talking about a player. We're talking about a staff member the Lions brought in this off-season that could have a very big impact in an area where the Lions need some help. And they needed help here for a while. So let's get it started.
We're going to bite a kneecap off, and we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome everybody to another video. Glad you guys are here. Yes, we're back to talk about another off-season edition, man. We're talking about another staff member for the Detroit Lions. Of course, we've done a few videos like this. We've talked about the Dom Capers effect. We've talked about some of the people the Lions have brought in. We'll probably continue to do videos like this, talk about the impact they could have on the team going forward. Maybe not everybody, but we may do more videos like this. But today, I wanted to talk about what I think was kind of an underrated addition the Lions made this offseason. The more I look into it, the more I look into this guy's background, what he's accomplished. I mean, this guy's done a lot of great things, and he could be a very key ingredient to fixing an area of the Lions offense that needs a lot of help, and it's needed for a long time. We'll get into the numbers and look at that in a second, but that is running back coach Duce Staley. I know what you're thinking. Wait, hold up. Did you just say running back coach? We're talking about a running back coach? Yes. Also the assistant head coach. But yes, running back coach Duce Staley for the Detroit Lions could have a major impact on turning this run game around. And the Lions, they need that to happen, especially this season with Jared Goff at quarterback. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to dive into the scheme, the stats. We're going to get into the numbers, but I first want to talk about Duce Staley a little bit. Go through a little background on Duce Staley and his time with the Philadelphia Eagles, as that's where he's coming from. Duce Staley was a former NFL running back, and he was a pretty darn good running back too. One thing for Duce Staley that's extremely impressive is that they went through a lot of regime changes. A lot of regime changes when he was there. And usually when teams go through regime changes, they bring in a new head coach, right? They have changes in the front office. Usually when stuff like that happens, usually assistant coaches are the guys that are gone. But Duce Staley was the longest tenured assistant coach. He made it through these regime changes, which speaks a lot to him. It speaks a lot to his character. It also speaks to how people feel about him joining in, the respect that they have for him to keep him around, but also the respect that the players have for Duce Staley as a coach to want to keep him around. And we'll get a little bit more into that in a second, because there is a lot of things that players have said about Duce Staley and a lot of ways they've praised Duce Staley. But with the Philadelphia Eagles, I think what he was really looking for was that promotion. I think his time with Philadelphia, being able to make it through these regime changes, is very impressive. It's hard enough to make it through regime changes. It's even harder to get promoted when new guys are coming in and their guys are bringing in their philosophy. So, I mean, it's hard enough to just make the team. It's hard enough to just stay on the staff and stay in your role. But it's even harder to get promoted in those situations. That moves us ahead to 2016. It was after the whole Chip Kelly kind of ugly situation there, and the head coaching position was open. And like a lot of assistant coaches, when that happens, okay, I'm going to interview for the head coaching job, see if I get it. If not, yeah, there's a good chance I'm going to be fired, but I'm going to try to get it. So he interviews for that job. Doesn't get the job. But like I said, players really respect him, and a lot of fans respect him as well. The front office has said a lot of great things about him, but he doesn't get that job in 2016. But he stays on the staff. So the new regime comes in, and they keep him on the staff at his same position. Extremely impressive. Flash forward a couple of years up to 2018, and now he gets an opportunity for a slight promotion. He is offered the offensive coordinator job, but he declines it, reportedly. I don't know if this is true or not, but reportedly he declined the offensive coordinator job. Now, we didn't get a ton of reasoning behind this, but the word that we have gotten is that it's because he was not offered the ability to call plays, which at the time, Doug Peterson being the head coach, he was the guy doing that. So for him, he's like, yeah, what's the heck is the point of doing that? I'm not going to take that job. Instead, he'll take the assistant head coach job, because that looks pretty good. But we all know it's about the job description. It's not necessarily about the title. It's about what are you actually doing. Duce Staley declines the offensive coordinator position. I'm not going to get call plays anyways. What's the point? I'm still having an impact on this game plan. There's been sound bites of him, working on the game plan together with Doug Peterson. Still going to have an impact on the game plan, but yet he's not going to get the call plays, so he's just going to stay in his role. However, now he's the assistant head coach, which is a very big promotion considering you're in a new regime than you were before. But then you move forward to 2020, and again, the firing happens. They win 4 games. They fire Doug Peterson. And guess what? Duce Staley sticks around. So he decides, hey, I'm going to interview for the head coaching position once again. And this time, he had a lot of support behind him. He had a lot of support because, like I said, he was the longest tenured assistant coach. Players respected the heck out of it. Of course, the fans were behind him as well. Being a former player, they were all behind him as well. Players said some big things. You got guys like Malcolm Jenkins, who at that time were with the New Orleans Saints. He left the Philadelphia Eagles, but he was with Philadelphia in the past, so he was with Duce Staley, and he said, hey, look, whenever Duce Staley spoke, and again, he was the running backs coach, whenever this guy spoke, you listen. He got the attention of everybody. All right, he's saying this guy should be the next head coach. That's what Malcolm Jenkins was saying. Brandon Graham, who was on the Eagles, said I would like to see him get an opportunity to be head coach. You got players texting the Eagles management to let him be the next head coach, to hire this guy. So he interviews. Apparently, the interview went well. He listed assistant coaches that he would have been interested in hiring, and apparently they were very impressed with those names. But guess what? They chose someone else. They went a different direction. And not very long after they hired their new head coach, and again, he probably would have stuck around through this regime as well, he decided, you know what? He asked out of his contract. He's like, can I get out of my contract? He asked out of his contract. They're like, okay. So they let him out of his contract, and that led to him getting hired by the Detroit Lions. It's also noteworthy that in 2020, they didn't even have an offensive coordinator. They never even named an offensive coordinator for that season. So it just seemed like Duce Staley was lacking the opportunities to get that promotion. He was the longest tenured assistant. He was going through these regime changes, which makes it tough. He was staying on the team, but he just wasn't getting opportunities. And again, you're getting a new head coach coming in. So for him, he's looking at saying, okay, best case scenario, I stay on this team. It's probably going to be tough to get a promotion because he's going to have his guys in place. Now, he's like, look, I've gotten calls from other clubs before. He stayed with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's been very loyal there, but of course, he never got the opportunity, so I don't blame him whatsoever, being like, dang, dude, I'm out. Brings us to the Detroit Lions. It brings us to Dan Campbell, and we call it the Dan Campbell effect. Some of the additions that he's made, and this was a big addition because Duce Staley, I mean, a lot of teams were interested in this guy when he asked out of his contract, including the Chicago Bears, and I think that's just awesome that he chose Dust over Chicago, but it was about the job description. Now, he said this is what Duce Staley said. I got the call from Dan Campbell, and then Aaron Glenn called me, and he's like, hey, we're building something special over here, and it just felt right to me. This felt like the right opportunity to choose. Now, he didn't go into much detail there, but if you listen to Dan Campbell, he talked about what he was going to have Duce Staley do. So technically, he has the same job title with the Detroit Lions, running backs coach and assistant head coach. But the difference is what they're going to do with him. Now, this is where Dan Campbell has some experience. Dan Campbell was the assistant head coach to Sean Payton with the New Orleans Saints, and we know that led to him getting the Detroit Lions head coaching job. So this is a real opportunity for him to get kind of a promotion, even though he's keeping the same job title, to learn from Dan Campbell. And Dan Campbell said, look, he'll be ready for a head coaching job when he's done here. But they had some more responsibilities for him. He said he's going to be involved in everything. You know, we're going to keep him involved just like Sean Payton kept me involved and gave me an opportunity to learn. And obviously now he's with the Detroit Lions because that experience is very, very important. Just because you have the title of assistant head coach, are you actually assisting the head coach, right? Are you involved in everything? And it sounds like with Philadelphia, he never really had that legitimate promotion. And of course, if you bring in a new head coach, yeah, he was the assistant head coach with the last regime, but a new one, he's probably going to lose that role. Campbell's like, look, he's going to be involved in player evaluation, the offense, the defense. He's going to be involved in the free agency process. He's going to do everything basically with me. That way he's ready for this job when he's all said and done here. So he's kind of helping out. It's kind of a nice little lifeline for a guy like Duce Staley. But ultimately, it got him in Detroit, which is awesome. He asked out of his contract, which is pretty crazy. And he chose us over a lot of teams that were interested in him, including the Chicago Bears, who are in the division. Okay, he chose the Lions, who were coming off a really rough season. They were losing their starting quarterback. I don't think you should just hire someone because that's who the fans want. However, just to put this into context, their new coach that they did hire, whose name I can't really say on the top of my head because I can't remember it, he got a 39% yes rating from the fans of Philadelphia that voted for him to be the next head coach. Only 39% of the fans said, yes, I want him as our next head coach. Meanwhile, 77% of the Philadelphia Eagles fans said that they wanted Duce Staley as their next head coach. It's just another thing to put in perspective that he had that kind of support going behind him. It was a lot of support behind him. That this guy is going to be working with Anthony Lynn is just insane. I just can't really fathom it. Trying to put that together, that you have a guy like Duce Staley and the amount of success that he's had as a running backs coach, and you pair him with Anthony Lynn and the amount of success that he's had rushing the football as an offensive coordinator, as a running back coach, is just incredible. Now let's dive into it a little bit. Let's start off with the scheme fit, all right? So one thing that you do, and it's like when the Lions hired Aubrey Pleasant, is you hire guys that are kind of on the same wavelength. Maybe they have some of the similar ideas, maybe they have some of the similar background, someone that's basically in your field. And Dan Campbell kind of alluded to this a little bit after the trade of Matthew Stafford. He's like, hey, if you have a weakness, then you better bolster that strength, okay, if you're going to win games. And I think what he was kind of saying there is like, hey, we know the quarterback position, maybe we took a little bit of a dip. There's going to be changes. I think this can be a really good situation for Jared Goff, but we know we got to be able to run the football. So we better bolster the heck out of that. And if you're going to be serious about fixing the run game, you got to have a lot of pieces. It's not just, hey, we need good running backs. It's not just, hey, we need a good offensive line. We need a lot of things. We need wide receivers that can block. We need tight ends that can block. We need our running backs to play well. We need deep running back position. We need to have multiple running backs that we can rely upon. And then we need the coaching staff. Then we need the coaches that can put these guys to be in a position to be successful and can bring the best out of his players, that can connect with the players. And that's what the Lions did with a lot of these moves. You talk about the offensive line upgrades. You talk about the running back position help that they added this offseason. Then you talk about, obviously, you have the receivers and tight ends that can block, and then the coaching staff. I can't necessarily say that, okay, hey, this is a zone rushing scheme fit for the Detroit Lions like we've talked about before, because he's been a part of a lot of different schemes, and he's played in different schemes as well. He's got a very diverse background, and I'm sure that he could fit really into any kind of rushing scheme that you wanted to put his running backs in, and he would be able to teach his players towards that, because he's really been in it all. You know, he's been with Chip Kelly, who was the spread offense. He's been with Andy Reid when he was running his West Coast, Doug Peterson, who was running like an East Coast type of offense. I mean, he's been a part of so many different offenses, but I do think they're kind of in the same realm when you talk about spread offense. Not necessarily that Duce Staley has a background of playing tons of zone rushing schemes, but he does have a lot of success there statistically when you go by the numbers. However, I think where he does fit in terms of scheme for the Detroit Lions is that spread offense. I think that's where they're kind of in the same area. They're kind of in the same realm going forward, is that spread offense background. Because while he's been with a lot of different offensive coordinators, he's been in a lot of spread offenses. Running out of the spread, running out of the shotgun, it's a very different element. Running out of the pistol is a very different element than running out off of under center. It's very different. It uses different running backs. Successful running out of the zone rushing scheme, specifically with a guy like Miles Sanders. A lot of his success statistically has come from zone rushing schemes, actually out of the shotgun, because that's what he was at Penn State. So he does have the background in kind of all those areas. Man blocking. Actually, a lot of times Philadelphia would pull centers, they pull tackles, but they would pull their center a lot. Jason Kelsey have him to lead the way. There's some pretty clear connections here that Duce Staley has with the Detroit Lions. One of the biggest ones has to be the connection of LaShawn McCoy. Anthony Lynn, when he worked with LaShawn McCoy for that short period of time, and you know, it was the best season we've ever seen out of LaShawn McCoy, in charge of that rushing attack offensively with the Buffalo Bills. But before that, he was with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he was with Duce Staley. And when Duce Staley joined and he became the running backs coach in 2013 with Philadelphia, is when we saw LaShawn McCoy go from good to great. We saw his first all-pro season. The guy was fantastic with Duce Staley. So they do have that connection. Again, kind of a spread type of running back. You also look at a guy like Big V. Of course, Big V is on the roster now for the Lions. He may be the right guard this season. It looks like that's going to be his position, but he was there with the Philadelphia Eagles as well. Actually, Duce Staley says he doesn't call him Big V, he calls him V. All right, so maybe we just got to start calling him V and not Big V anymore. I don't know. His afros make me call him Big V, though. Another connection, Michael Warren. Michael Warren was with Philadelphia for a very short period of time in 2020, and now here he is with the Detroit Lions. After they released Raheem Boyd, they signed Michael Warren out of Cincinnati. Players and personnel that would fit the scheme that you're looking for. So I do think they're in the same type of area, and he just has background in all of it. Man blocking schemes, power blocking, pulling, centers, guards, tackles, zone blocking schemes. He's been a part of all of that, but spread is something that he's been a part of a ton. It doesn't matter really what scheme you implement if you're not getting the best out of your team. If you're not getting the best out of players, if you can't get them to bring their best on the field, it really doesn't matter what you implement, you're not going to be successful. And that's something that Duce Staley has done extremely well. We've talked about the player support that he had behind him when he was trying to become the head coach. Malcolm Jenkins saying, hey, in another life, I'd play for him. I like where I am, but in another life, I'd do it. I'd play for that guy. About a week there with the Philadelphia Eagles where he was asked to step up and kind of run the team during training camp, and he did. They didn't miss a beat whatsoever. So players have been around this guy, and they all listen to him. They all respect him, which is extremely important. But here's two running backs that spoke of Duce Staley, and I think these are very important quotes, and when you read them, you can just kind of understand the kind of person that Duce Staley is. Let's start off with this quote from LaShawn McCoy. So what he did with LaShawn McCoy, he took a good running back and made him great. He turned him into almost Shady McCoy. What we know as Shady McCoy, how talented this guy is, because he made him focus on the little things. LaShawn McCoy's a ridiculous talent, right? We know how good this guy was. But it's about focusing on the little things, because you're going to be good. You're just that talented. But can I make you great? And that's what he did. He put him on the path to greatness. That's really what he did. And this is what LaShawn McCoy said, because when he had LaShawn McCoy for his first season, LaShawn McCoy's numbers went up to 5.1 yards per carry, 1,600 rushing yards, 9 touchdowns. The guy literally averaged over 100 rushing yards a game, which is crazy. He had 2,100 yards from scrimmage because he had 539 receiving yards. LaShawn McCoy said about Duce Staley. He said, he made me learn assignments of every position. All right, so this is speaking on, focusing on the small details. He's like, look, he made me learn the assignments of every position on the offense. So I have to understand what the receiver's responsibility is, what the quarterback, the offensive line, everybody's responsibility, because I know what everybody's responsibility is offensively, then I know where things are going to develop, where things are going to happen. I'm blessed to have worked with with him. He says, I don't know if my career would have been as dominant. And that's real talk. So if he didn't get to work with him, he doesn't know if his career would have turned out like it did. Because he taught him the small details, the little things. Hey, we're going to make you focus, and you have to learn everybody's responsibility, not just yours. You got to know what everybody is responsible for doing. That way you can see the entire outlook, the entire vision of the play. And then you give him to Anthony Lynn, and guess what? Anthony Lynn, when he gets an opportunity to take over, the guy averages his career high 5.4 yards per carry. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, I'm serious. I cannot believe these two guys are teaming up. The amount of success they've had on the running game, it really looks like the Lions can have a legit rushing attack. And we'll get into some numbers in a second. But then also Miles Sanders. What he was able to do with Miles Sanders, right? We're talking about a rookie running back here. It's tough for rookies in general. It's actually statistically one of the hardest positions to draft and have those guys last in the NFL. It's really tough to draft a running back. So they brought in Miles Sanders. And in his first two seasons, 2019, 2020, obviously Duce Staley is gone now. He brought so much out of Miles Sanders and he made him successful right away, which is impressive. It's tough to do that with a rookie. In his first season, Miles Sanders had 4.6 yards per carry for 818 yards, 1,300 yards from scrimmage. In his second year, only playing 12 games. So in 4 less games, the guy averaged 5.3 yards per carry, 867 yards, and over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. Again, he only played in 12 games that season. Yes, it is important to note that the Eagles a lot of times had a top offensive line, but we also know that just because you have a top offensive line does not mean you're going to be able to run the ball well. Lions have had top offensive lines in the past, but they didn't run the ball well. You have to have good running backs. It's tough to find a running back, and then you have to bring the best out of them. And that's what Duce Staley was able to do. And I think this was a very big statement that Miles Sanders made here. He said this. He said, I've never had a father figure. Deuce looked at me like his little brother. He said, I've never had that. Deuce believed in me and he pushed me. Just that quote alone, I think, just tells you who Lions are getting here. It's that Duce Staley is gone, but he knows that Duce Staley loves what he does and he's going to go get an opportunity elsewhere. That guy really impacted Miles Sanders. The players have said it's great, but it's also very hard to argue with results. It's hard to argue with cold, hard numbers. Now, we got to keep in mind that Duce Staley, through his tenure, was only the running backs coach. He was not the offensive coordinator, right? He wasn't calling the plays. He was not the offensive line coach. He was only the running backs coach. But I think we can take a look at the rushing numbers, and you can see the impact that he's had, because we've seen top offensive lines not run the ball well. The Lions have had top offensive lines and not ran the ball well. There's a lot that goes into it. But I want to show the numbers on the screen right now. And we're going to kind of roll through these stats here from 2013 to 2020 and just the numbers that he's put up and how impressive it is. Now you can see 2012, that was the year before Duce Staley got there. Statistically, the big jump that this offense took when Duce Staley got there, the first year that he became the running backs coach for the Philadelphia Eagles, and just take a look at the stats difference there. And again, LaShawn McCoy was there in 2012. He was there in both years. So it went from, LaShawn McCoy good to all of a sudden being an all-pro type of running back. So you go from 4.5 yards per carry all the way up to 5.1. That's first in the National Football League, first in yards. 2,566 rushing yards. That is ridiculous. Okay, and you have 19 touchdowns. Now, I do want to say this. If you look these numbers up and you see a lot of fumbles, because there are a lot of fumbles, I've looked them up. I've went through this trying to figure out where those come from. It's come a lot from the quarterback position. The Eagles have had a lot of trouble fumbling the football from the quarterback position, whether it's Nick Foles, Carson Wentz specifically. They've had a lot of issues with that. I almost feel like Duce Staley should help them here, because one thing Duce Staley really prides himself on is protecting the football. He said that he was taught by his coach the 4 pressure points on a football. So maybe he needs to help to coach some of these quarterbacks to hold on to the ball. But regardless, you can see the stat jump that they took. I mean, those are incredibly impressive. Could you imagine having a year like that where we had that many rushing yards? 5.1 yards per carry. But then let's look at 2014. 4.2 yards per carry, which was 14th, top half of the league. Almost 2,000 yards in the top 10. 16 touchdowns in the top 10. He finished in the top 10 of rushing yards 4 of the 8 years that he was the running back coach. Half of the years that he was there, they finished in the top 10 of rushing yards. That is incredibly impressive. Now, you look at 2015, and you're looking at this, you're saying, okay, what happened this year? Now, this was the year with Chip Kelly as head coach, and I did some research behind this trying to figure out what went wrong, because you can see statistically, there were some drops in 2015. Well, what went wrong in 2015 is that they went out and they brought in DeMarco Murray. And this was a very big issue, because they brought in DeMarco Murray, who was a very under-the-center running back, right? That's where he has a lot of success. And what did the Philadelphia Eagles try to do? Well, they tried to play him in the shotgun. And apparently Chip Kelly's like, hey, I'm not changing my scheme for this, okay? We brought him in. This was supposed to be a big splash, but I'm not going to change my scheme. I'm still going to run my offense, and we're going to try to fit you into the spread offense. You can't out-scheme your players. You can't bring in players that don't fit the scheme and expect it to work just because they're talented. And that's why, like what Lions have done this offseason, it's clear the type of player that they're looking for. When you look at the draft picks, when you look at the signing of Jamal Williams, very similar to a guy like Jamar Jefferson. When you look at the offensive lineman additions, like a guy like Penei Sewell, tool, the athleticism they want. It's clear they want guys that can fit a zone rushing scheme. They also want to be able to, play out of a spread situation, play out of a spread formation. Marco Murray didn't play well, but Ryan Matthews has the highest yards per attempt of his career, 5.1. So if you would have just had the right pieces, the right fit, you probably would have done better as a team here. But no, your stats look bad. Ryan Matthews looks good, but you don't have the right fit with DeMarco Murray. So it's a whole ugly situation. Chip Kelly ultimately will get fired. It's kind of like the whole Goff and Stafford trade video that we talked about, right? Goff coming to this team where they're going to build an offense around him, and Stafford going to Sean McVay and playing in an offense that he's very comfortable with. So you're putting him in the right scheme. You're going to get the best out of that player in that situation. It's all about those situations. And that's why I felt like Goff could be successful, because now they're going to build an offense around him. Marco Murray talked about it. He said himself, like, look, he's a very smart player. His scheme is really good, but I just don't fit that kind of scheme. It's like the difference of what the Lions are doing now. When you talk about this team, they want to put guys in where they feel they could be the best. So they're building the scheme around the players, not the players around the scheme. They're building the scheme based on the talent that they have on the team. And that's why they decide to go the direction they're going defensively with their 3-4, getting the more size. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to put the players where they feel like they're going to be the best based on what they've seen on tape. Instead of trying to ask everybody to change like the Lions did in the pass regime. Remember the pass regime? We try to get everybody to change, put on weight, get bigger. You're going to ask everybody to change how they're built. Jared Davis doesn't fit because all of a sudden you're going to a new scheme. All of a sudden he doesn't fit, so he just loses his role. Bounce back in 2016 again. You're talking new regime here. 4.1 yards per carry, 1,800 yards. That's 11th. 16 touchdowns, which is 12th. Then you move forward to 2017. 4.5 yards per carry, over 2,000 yards. Third in the league this season, 9 touchdowns. Touchdowns definitely took a little bit of a drop off. But what's important about this year is this was the year that they won the Super Bowl. And what's so important here is that they were 7-1 in the first 8 weeks, and they relied heavily on this run game. They averaged 132 rushing yards a game this season, which led the NFL. They won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. Now, Nick Foles played well. Don't get it twisted, but you're relying a lot on that run game. And what's so impressive about this season specifically isn't even that they were just good. It's that Duce Staley did what's really tough to do. And that's manage egos, all right? Bringing in a top running back that feels like he's a starter, pairing him with another guy that feels like he's a starter is tough to do. But Duce Staley was able to manage egos during the season and had to be successful. That was Jay Ajayi, and that was also LeGarrette Blount. He was able to put those two guys in the same running back room and have success. The coaching staff gave him a lot of credit for being able to do that, because that's a tough responsibility to take two top running backs and have them both be successful. It's a tough thing to do because, there's ego issues there. One player gets mad, doesn't feel like he's getting enough touches. That's a problem. He was able to get them both to buy in, and that led the Charge to a Super Bowl victory because they had their backup quarterback. They won with their backup quarterback because the running game was just that successful. 2018, you see another little drop here in terms of stats. This was actually the worst year at 3.9 yards per carry. But what happened in this year is that they had no running backs. The fact that they averaged almost 4 yards a carry with no running backs is impressive. This was their running back for a season. They had Josh Adams, who was a UDFA out of Notre Dame. Hasn't really done anything since then. But hey, I guess that does fit because Notre Dame, we signed so many UDFAs out of Notre Dame. But they had Josh Adams as their top rusher this season, a UDFA out of Notre Dame. Smallwood was another one of their leading rushers. Josh Adams averaged 4.3 yards per carry. Smallwood averaged 4.2 yards per carry. But what happened? Jay Ajayi was hurt. LeGarrette Blount was gone from the year before. And Corey Clement was hurt. So you lost a lot of your top running backs. So they were relying upon UDFAs, the depth here. And this speaks a lot. This speaks big volumes because sometimes this happens and you have to go into your depth. The fact is, can you make it successful? And while it wasn't a great year, it was enough for 9 wins, and it wasn't bad. It wasn't like they were completely awful. It definitely took a drop. It definitely did, but that's why that year was like it was. Lions went through this in 2019. Now, they weren't running the ball well this year anyways, but when they went through it and they had Trey Carson, Paul Perkins, Wes Hills, both Scarborough was the only guy that found any kind of success averaging 4.2 yards a carry. It's not great, but it was solid. But Wes Hills, 2.1, Paul Perkins, 2.4, Trey Carson, 2.8. Like, that can't happen. You can't completely have no rushing attack. So it's important that a guy like Staley is able to go to UDFAs, able to go deep down the depth chart and say, okay, we'll make it successful, we'll make it work. But you can see then the bounce back the very next season. Back up to 4.3 yards per carry. This is the rookie year for Miles Sanders. 1,900 yards, 11th in the league. 16 touchdowns rushing. And in 2020, we're all the way back up to 5 yards per carry. Over 2,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. I mean, just look at those numbers, man. Now, if you average this all out, this would be 4.375 yards per carry throughout his career. So on average, every season, his teams average 4.375 yards per carry that he's a part of. Now, to put that in perspective, I went back to 2010. The Lions only had 1 year where they averaged 4.3 yards per carry. The second best was 4.1. They had 1 year averaging 4.3 yards per carry, and that was 2011. So technically, in the last 10 years, they haven't even had a year that was better than the average of what Duce Staley had with the Philadelphia Eagles. That is insane. Again, they had a top offensive line, but you have to have your running backs be successful. Because when DeMarco Murray didn't fit the scheme and they said, yeah, we're still going to do it, it didn't work. Clearly didn't work, and you can see the statistical production drop. You have to have all these little things click together, and that's extremely important. The shotgun percentages. I was just trying to demonstrate how much of a spread offense that he's played in. Last season, 2020, when they averaged 5 yards per carry, 80% of the snaps came out of shotgun. 80% of the snaps. All right, so I'm not saying we're going to play it that much, but my point is he does have that spread background. I think this kind of demonstrates that just a little bit more. At 66%, they only averaged 4.1 yards per carry back in 2016. Players that you have, but you can see, though, he's had a lot of success on the spread offense, so he's going to fit. But those numbers, I mean, they speak for themselves. I mean, the Lions' highest season was 2011. They averaged 4.3 yards per carry, and they made the playoffs that season. And that's not even great. Like, that was 14th in the league at that time. That's not even that good. You want to push top 10. We should be pushing top 10. This is why you invest. You've invested the offensive line. You went first-round pick left tackle. Your left guard's a third-round pick. Your center's a first-round pick. Your right guard is $45 million. Your right tackle's a first-round pick. You should have a rushing attack. Now you need the running backs to be successful behind it. And we've dove into this whole offseason. I was like, this is why the Lions need a running back. The Lions addressed it, but they took it a step forward. They said, we're not only going to address that, we're going to get two of the best rushing minds we know. We're going to get Anthony Lynn, who has done incredible things, and then we're going to grab Duce Staley. Both of these guys have the spread background, so it's going to fit Jared Goff and what he's comfortable with. And we're going to go run the freaking ball, and we're going to be successful doing so. And that's what I'm excited about, is because the Lions should have a top offensive line. It starts with this kind of addition because Duce Staley has done it everywhere. He's gotten it out of UDFAs. A guy named Josh Adams averaging 4.3 yards per carry. That's your option. That's your number one option. He's averaging. Wendell Smallwood is averaging 4 point. I mean, think about that for a second. We couldn't get that out of a former second-round pick in Kerryon Johnson. Andre Swift went down for a few weeks last season. The Lions were awful. They didn't get any production out of Kerryon and Adrian Peterson. And this is what I was saying. It's like, hey, Swift is proving we can run, but we need help. This is why we have to go add some running backs this offseason, which we did. This is why, well, I guess it looks like a running back coach could be very beneficial because without Swift, we played the Panthers. Adrian Peterson had 2.6 yards per carry. Kerryon Johnson had 2.8. Then you played the Texans. Peterson went for 3.7. Kerryon went for 4.2. That's not good. It's not awful, but it's not good. And Texans' run defense was bad. And then you face the Bears. Peterson goes for 3.6. Kerryon goes for 1 yard per carry. He only had 3 carries in the game. He got 3 yards. Even when Swift came back against the Packers, where he went for 3.4 yards per carry, which isn't good, your other running backs went for 1.8 and 1.5. That was the kind of support that we had. That's why it was such a big deal that we went out and we got a Jamal Williams and we got a Jermar Jefferson. And now we got a running back coach. Swift can average 4.6 yards per carry in his rookie season behind this offensive line. Miles Sanders averaged 4.6 yards per carry in his rookie year. And then his second year, he went for 5.3 yards per carry. There's no question that Duce Staley potentially could do something like that with DeAndre Swift. You get more opportunities for sure, but his yards per carry went up. He learned the little details of the game, and that's what he's going to be teaching Swift this offseason are the little things, the little assignment details, the little things you got to pick up on to be successful and take your game to the next level. All right, the little developmental things like playing through those games, the rotation, when to get guys involved. He knows how you can mess up a rhythm of a running back by taking a guy on or off the field, when to do it, when not to do it, when a guy needs rest. He knows those little things, and he knows the little quirks in a game, little adjustments that he can tell his running backs to get them going. It's the little things that Duce Staley can bring to the table and offer that the Lions really need at the running back coach position. Take Swift from being good last year, solid rookie campaign, to being great. Right? We want to have that LaShawn McCoy effect that Duce Staley had when LaShawn McCoy started working with Duce Staley. We want that effect on our running backs to take you from good to great. Same thing with Jamal. Jamal's been good, but let's make him great. Let's get him with a great running back coach. If he can do that with UDFA running backs, I'm sure that he can take a second-round pick in Swift, a fourth-round pick in Jamal Williams, a seventh-round pick in Jermar Jefferson, and have some success. All right, I know he can because I've already seen Swift have some success last season. You need other guys as well to come with you. And if Duce Staley can do that with UDFAs, I know what he can do with these draft picks. The Lions have really struggled is rushing the football, and we may have been overlooking how important this running back coach is. I also think the offense coordinator has a lot to do with it as well, but the guy that's right there working with the running backs. I had confidence in Anthony Lynn on his own because he did the same same thing with LaShawn. You know, he put him in his best situation to be successful. Add Duce Staley to the mix with Anthony Lynn. I mean, that's just a crazy pairing. And no one's talking about it. No one's talking about that pairing together, which is just the nuts how successful this could be. There is legitimate reason to believe the Lions could have a rushing attack, because it's not just, hey, we got a good running back, or hey, we got this new lineman, so we should run this year. It's, hey, we got the line, we got the running backs, but now we also have the coaching staff. We have the guys that have proven that they can produce successful rushing attacks. Guys proven there, not just guys that we think could. We have guys that have done it, and they have the resumes to back it up. Anthony Lynn has a very legitimate rushing resume, and obviously you look at a guy like Staley, he does as well. And is though, we may have been overlooking how important it actually is to have a guy like Duce Staley on our staff that coaches the running backs, because the Lions may have just needed this. They may have needed this in the backfield, just like other teams have needed it. Anthony Lynn gave to the Buffalo Bills, just like the impact Duce Staley gave to the Philadelphia Eagles for having one of the top rushing attacks of the decade. Now it's going to change, but one thing you want to keep constant is the coaching staff, and if the Lions can do that with that offensive coordinator spot and with the running back coach spot, maybe we could find our own consistent success in the backfield, right? That's a spot we've really lacked. But if we finally found those right guys, which I believe these are really good guys for turning around a rushing game and making it happen, the Lions could find that consistency. Look how many running backs Duce Staley has coached with. But yeah, he's found success in a lot of those guys, as long as they fit the right scheme. Look how many guys Anthony Lynn has worked with, but he's found a lot of success with a lot of different types of players. But that's because he knows how to get the best out of these guys and how to put them in the right situation. And the Lions have all the guys that fit the same situation. They fit the scheme. You can see what the Lions are going for here. It's going to work because they're not mixed on, hey, we got this kind of running back, we got this one too. I'm not really sure if they're, both zone scheme fits, but they're both running backs. Like, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know where we're going with this. You can see the clear picture of where the Lions are going. Between him and Anthony Lynn is going to be fantastic. I think it's going to be incredible. We know Lions want to run the ball, but I think, the background being similar, having the connections that they do, similar players, I think this is going to be an awesome opportunity. I love what Dan Campbell is doing here, and I'm telling you, this guy might have a little chip on his shoulder, like, hey, I'm mad. So we're going to go out there and dominate, building something special over here. And it was a special addition to get a guy like Duce Staley, and I'm so happy we did. So I'm happy you're here, Duce Staley. Let's go out there and let's run the freaking ball, right? Let's make this thing happen. Let's turn this run game around. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.